If you're new here, my name is Simon Good and I'm a professional mediator. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about how to apologize to a coworker. I'll explain the 5 different types of apology and the kinds of language that you might include in each of those, and some of the underlying principles as well that you can use to almost like supercharge your apology. And I suppose this can be helpful just to differentiate what kind of options that we have for apologising, because we might find that a particular approach or a particular phrasing tends to resonate with us more than the others. But it also means that if you feel like you've apologised to somebody and they're still upset about something, well, maybe instead of just repeating what you've already done and likely getting to the situation that you're already in at the moment, you might consider doing something differently. And one of the other options for apology might be, I guess, one of the things that you could consider. So if we imagine a scenario where I'm doing a conflict resolution training workshop, that's a lot of what I do day to day, is deliver workshops with groups of staff. Sometimes I do it online, but other times I go and do it in the office. And so we're usually in a conference room or a meeting room or something like that. And let's imagine that after the training workshop, we all just got up and left. Maybe you had something urgent that you needed to go and attend to. Somebody else in the group had said that they would look after the cleaning, or you assumed that they would, or maybe you assumed that I would do it, but I'm thinking, well, who am I? I don't work here. It's not my job, etc. This is an example, by the way, of data conflict. There's just a lack of clarity around expectations. So we probably could have solved this problem by just asking a quick question about how we're going to deal with this mess. Anyway, we didn't do it. We all leave and somebody has to go and clean up afterwards. I don't know in your office who that would be, if it's the office manager or something like that, or maybe you don't have anyone like that and it would be maybe even your supervisor or the business owner or something that cleans up the mess. And then what do you know? They're so angry that they send an irritated email out to all of the staff that are involved, you and the other members of the team who were in the session, but also everyone else, reminding them about the fact that there's no maid that works here and they are grown adults and you are not their mother or father or whatever. Like all of this kind of stuff that we tend to go into when we're in that much more escalated state, and we're probably not thinking very clearly about the consequences in terms of the language that we're choosing, etc. Anyway, we all get this angry email and we do feel bad about it. That wasn't the right thing to do, leave you with the mess, and that sucks. And so we want to apologize. Well, all of us might have a slightly different way that we would apologize. So here are the 5 different kinds. The first option is that we could just say something like, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'd like to offer you an apology, something along those lines. That word sorry, I think in particular, is important for some people, particularly when the nature of the hurt that they feel like that they've experienced is like there's an element of betrayal or a breach of trust. It's one of the themes that I've noticed in a mediation, that when trust has been undermined, apologies is often something that's quite important as a little bit of a circuit breaker. It's an interesting one for me because I'm not sure that I personally necessarily care about apologies as much as some other people tend to do, but I've certainly noticed that it does make a difference when someone gets an apology. So I have to say I've become a little bit more converted into the potential benefits of apologizing or offering an apology or even demanding or asking for an apology. Look, it would mean a lot to me if you would apologize for what you did and the impact that it had on me. So that's the first option, I'm sorry. The second way that we might apologize is to say something along the lines of, I shouldn't have done that. That wasn't right. That was wrong of us to leave the mess for you to clean up. That's not your job. That shouldn't have happened. So that's kind of an acknowledgement of the wrongdoing of it. And again, I think there's particular people who really like to hear this. I just want you to admit that you were wrong. I just want you to admit that it wasn't my fault, even though it looked like it was, or something like that. So there's a practical part of that, or of I want to make sure that I'm not kind of copying the negative consequences for something that it wasn't my fault, I'm not responsible for it. But I think the other side of it is like, it's a moral, I don't know, like admitting it almost, like how you plead that you're guilty. I think for some people that does make a difference for them. The third option that we have is to say something along the lines of, I'm not going to do that again. So with the office mess, we might say something like, I just want you to let you know that we've put a little note at the bottom of our agenda template reminding us to clean up before we leave, or I'll stick around and make sure that it's clean before I go and I'm usually the last one to leave, or something like that. Something along the lines of "I won't do it again." It can be helpful to add certainty. These are the steps that I'm going to take. That's one of the factors that I often talk about when I'm running de-escalation skills training, for example. The fourth way that we might apologize is to say something like, "How can I make it up to you? Like, what can I do to make it right?" So if we decided to use this type of apology with the office manager, we might show up at their desk with a really delicious cupcake or a muffin that we've bought them, or, offer to buy them a beer after work or something like that. Like, it would depend on the person and the relationship, but either you can make a gesture of, "I'd like to, contribute something," or it might be asking them, "How can I make it up to you?" Now, one important thing to note about this fourth type of apology is that it's better to underplay how important this is. When I watch, what's it called? F is for Family, and Bill Burr, who plays and wrote Frank, the main guy, like, does something wrong. He always does some token gesture, like, who ordered breakfast in the morning? I made you powdered eggs. Okay, I guess we're over it now. Let's get on with the day, type of thing. So I think that's the risk of this fourth type of apologies. It's like, I don't want to necessarily give the impression that I have assumed that this is enough. Do you know what I mean? It's better to be a little bit overly cautious or underplay what you're offering. So you might actually be better off saying something like, "Look, this can't make it right, and there's no way to take back what happened. I hope this is just a tiny gesture in some way to let you know how sorry we are," or something along those lines. Or some small thing that we can do to balance the scales. If it's helpful, I could take this task off your hands so you could leave early on Friday, or something like that. Having said that, I know that that doesn't necessarily equate to the amount of frustration that you experienced, because you had to, whatever the thing was, that you have to make it seem like their suffering was pretty significant and you're not necessarily balancing it to the same degree. It's better to be tentative and to say, "Oh, I don't know how you see this. What do you reckon?" And then ironically, they often say, "That's really great. I appreciate it." Whereas if you say, "Surely this is enough. What's your problem? Haven't you gotten over that yet?" Well, of course, then the temptation is for them to play that counter side of the adversarial argument and say, "Well, no, actually, what you did was quite bad," or "It's not the first time," or whatever. And before we know it, we're escalating that spiral of conflict instead of de-escalating. The final option that we've got is to say something like, "Please forgive me." Now, I don't think that you would necessarily use that type of language in a workplace setting, "Please forgive me." Although maybe with a business partner or something like that, I suppose there might be some situations where that could be appropriate. I think more commonly, though, it's something along the lines of, "Can we move past this?" Or asking something along the lines of, "What would it take? What do you need to see from me so that you could move past this?" Or, "What do you need to hear from me?" Or, "What would you need to see me doing to make you confident that I had changed my ways?" Or, "What would you need to see in terms of a pattern of behavior for trust to be rebuilt?" So I'm pointing the goalposts towards, let's rebuild trust or reestablish our working relationship or whatever it is. And by the way, even if you're a team leader or a manager and you're coaching your staff, you can still apply a similar type of approach. But it's really about, how can we get through this or move things forward or shift things in the right direction? It's not necessarily how can I solve it, like how can I fully move past it? I personally tend to use language that lowers the stakes, like, what would be the first sign from you that I was, taking this issue more seriously, or whatever it was that they were wanting you to do. So as I've gone through those options, what do you make of them? "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that," or "I was wrong," "I won't do it again," "How can I make it up to you?" And then that final one of, "Please forgive me," "What will it take to move forward?" "What will it take to move past it?" Which one of those would you like to hear if you were the person who had the mess and you wanted to clean it up? I'd love to hear in the comments below. For a tiny little channel on YouTube like this, any positive sign from the algorithm is incredibly helpful. So thank you in advance if you're willing to leave a comment. And if it's been helpful, please consider pressing like. And if you would like more free resources for dealing with conflict, whether it's in workplaces or other situations, please consider hitting subscribe. Thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.